The stranger who saved them was the killer they feared most. Before we get into this story, I've got a gift for you. I've written an exclusive Wild West tale you won't find on YouTube, and it's completely free. Just check the link in the description or the pinned comment to grab your copy. Now saddle up, and let's ride straight into today's story. Before we dive in, pause for a moment and tell me something. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Maybe it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. Don't just watch quietly. Drop a comment below, and let's see how far this story reaches across the world. Now lean in, and let's begin. The wind carried the smell of burned corn husks and hunger across the hollow valley. Children huddled around a fading fire, their faces pale with exhaustion. A widow named Elodie knelt in the dirt, clutching her daughter's trembling hands. The town had been stripped bare by raiders, barrels empty, wells poisoned. They had nothing left but each other, and even that felt fragile. A boy's voice broke the silence, sharp as a knife. "Mama, are we going to die like Papa?" It was too much. Even the crows circling overhead fell quiet. Elodie's heart broke, but she forced a smile. "Not while I can breathe," she whispered, though she believed the opposite. Around them, fathers lowered their heads, ashamed they could not feed their kin. The silence of despair was heavy enough to choke. In the distance, hoofbeats echoed, a single rider cutting through the dusk. No one moved. Every soul in that square knew the name whispered on the wind. The rider halted at the edge of the ruined town. Dust swirled, a scarred face beneath a wide-brimmed hat. "It's him," someone whispered, voice trembling. "The one they call Murray the Butcher." Mothers pulled their children close. Guns trembled in shaking hands. The man dismounted slowly, every step a threat. Murray looked around at their starving faces, and for a moment his eyes softened. But the silence was a noose tightening. Nobody dared speak, until Elodie's daughter stepped forward, her tiny voice cracking the air. "Are you here to kill us too?" she asked. And the stranger didn't answer. Was he their doom? Or their last hope? Days earlier, whispers had carried Murray's name across the plains like a curse. Some swore he once burned a town for refusing him water. Others said he shot a preacher at the altar. No man's past was darker, and no outlaw's reputation spread wider. People crossed themselves when they heard his name. Fathers loaded rifles. Mothers kept children inside. Yet hunger makes cowards brave, and this dying town had no strength left to resist if he wanted blood. Elodie remembered the night her husband fell, gunned down by raiders who left her with nothing but grief. She stood now with shaking knees, but refused to bow. "If you've come for death, you'll find nothing but bones," she said, her voice trembling yet steady. The townsfolk held their breath. Murray studied her, then tossed something into the dirt, a sack. It burst open, spilling hard biscuits, strips of jerky, and dried apples. Gasps spread like wildfire. Children fell to their knees, clawing for crumbs until their mothers pulled them back. "Eat," Murray said simply. His voice was rough as gravel, yet not cruel. But his eyes, those eyes carried ghosts that no one could name. A boy shouted, "Why would a killer feed us?" And silence fell heavy again. Murray holstered his pistol and turned toward the church, muttering words nobody caught. For the first time, doubts spread through the townsfolk. Was this the devil they feared, or a broken man seeking something none of them understood? Why had the butcher spared them? The town buzzed with fear disguised as gratitude. Children gnawed at bread they hadn't tasted in weeks, while mothers prayed silently. Yet suspicion coiled tighter with every heartbeat. Could poison lurk in that food? Could this be his game? To watch them choke after hope returned? Elodie followed Murray into the hollow church, her heart hammering. He sat in the front pew, hat in his lap, staring at the crucifix as though waiting for judgment. His gun rested beside him, polished and ready. She stood behind him, her voice trembling. Why us? Why feed the same people who fear your shadow? Murray didn't turn. Because I buried a boy your daughter's age last winter. And I don't want to bury another. His words cut her deeper than any blade. She saw, in that moment, a man scarred not just in flesh, but in soul. Outside, men gathered. Some wanted him gone. Some wanted him dead. But none could deny the food had saved their children's lives that night. Elodie stared at him, torn between fear and something else, something she refused to name. You carry death, Murray. Why bring us life? For the first time, he looked at her. His gaze was fire and sorrow all at once. Because maybe, he said softly, life is the only debt I can still pay. Could the devil himself be searching for redemption? The night was restless. Families huddled close, stomachs no longer empty, but hearts still heavy. Some whispered thanks. Others plotted vengeance. It was hard to sleep knowing the butcher walked their streets freely. In a shadowed corner, 3 men sharpened knives. He'll kill us all sooner or later, one spat. Better we strike first. Another nodded, clutching a rusted pistol. Fear, not courage, guided their hands. Meanwhile, Elodie sat awake by the fire, watching her daughter sleep. Murray leaned against a post nearby, his silhouette etched against the flames. He hadn't touched food, hadn't spoken a word since the church. He seemed less a man, more a ghost haunting himself. The rustle of footsteps broke the night. Knives glinted. Murray's eyes snapped open. In a blink, steel flashed and bodies crashed to the ground. Shouts tore through the silence as villagers spilled from their huts. The attackers lay at his feet, one disarmed, another choking on his own fear. Murray didn't kill them. He merely kicked their blades aside and turned away, leaving them alive but humiliated. And that restraint frightened the townsfolk even more than bloodshed would have. Why would a killer spare his enemies? Morning light revealed more than broken weapons. The 3 men who struck in the night were dragged into the square. Fearful townsfolk demanded justice. Some wanted exile. Some wanted blood. But all eyes turned to Murray. He stepped forward slowly, boots crunching against the dirt. His voice was low, but it silenced the crowd. If you want them punished, I'll do it. Killing is all I've ever known. His hand hovered near his gun, and the 3 men trembled. Mothers shielded their children's eyes. But then Murray stepped back. No, not today. Today, I don't answer death with death. He turned to leave, and whispers rippled, confusion, doubt, even respect. Elodie watched him walk away, her chest tight. For the first time, she wondered if the most feared man in the West was not their enemy, but their shield. And yet, far beyond the valley, riders gathered. The same raiders who had burned Elodie's home were coming back, hungrier and crueler than before. The town did not yet know it, but their survival would soon depend on the man they feared most. The sky turned red with dust long before the raiders appeared. On the ridge above the valley, riders lined up, scarves masking their faces, rifles glinting in the sun. It was the same gang that had taken Elodie's husband, the same men who had drained the wells and stolen the grain. Their leader, a cruel-eyed brute named Calder, spat into the wind and laughed. Let's take what's left. Buzzards can have their bones. Down in the hollow, the townsfolk panicked. Men fumbled for rusted rifles. Women hid children in cellars. But they had no ammunition, no horses, no strength. Fear tore through them like wildfire. And Murray? He stood at the edge of town, watching the ridge, his hand resting on the hilt of his revolver. Elodie ran to him, breathless. They'll kill us all. You've seen what they do. Her voice cracked with dread. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned, scanning the crowd of desperate faces. For the first time, he spoke like a commander. If you want to live, you'll stand with me. If not, start digging your graves. Silence. Then the first shot rang out from the ridge, splitting the air. Would Murray fight for them, or abandon them to die? The first bullet struck dust at their feet, sending mothers screaming for cover. A man cried out, clutching his shoulder. The raiders were not attacking yet. They were playing with fear. Murray barked orders. Barrels. Wagons. Stack them at the entrance. You've got 10 minutes. His voice was iron, cutting through panic. Some obeyed instantly, driven by survival. Others resisted, spitting curses. We won't follow a butcher, one farmer growled, refusing to lift a finger. The town teetered between unity and collapse. Elodie grabbed the man's arm. Would you rather follow Calder? Her eyes burned with fury. The farmer dropped his gaze and began dragging a wagon into place. One by one, others joined. For the first time, fear shifted into fragile determination. Murray loaded his gun with calm precision. They'll test us first. Don't fire till I do. And when I shoot, aim for the riders, not the shadows. On the ridge, Calder's laughter echoed. He raised his rifle slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the moment. The town braced for blood, and Murray whispered under his breath, almost a prayer. Not today. Who would draw first blood? The first volley thundered like rolling thunder across the valley. Bullets splintered wood, tore through walls, and sent children screaming. Dust choked the air, the world shrinking into chaos. Fathers fired back blindly, missing more than they hit. The raiders hooted, circling like wolves. Then Murray stepped forward, calm amid the storm. His revolver flashed, once, twice, 3 times. Each shot struck true, dropping riders from their saddles with terrifying precision. Gasps erupted from the townsfolk. For a moment, the butcher was no outlaw, but a shield forged in fire. Elodie clutched her daughter close, watching through tears. He's not saving himself, she whispered. He's saving us. The townsfolk rallied emboldened. Women hurled rocks from rooftops. Men fired from windows. The raiders snarled, pulling back from the sudden resistance. But their retreat was no surrender. It was strategy. Calder raised his hand, signaling the next wave. Dozens of riders surged forward, the ground trembling beneath their hooves. Murray holstered his pistol and drew his rifle. His jaw was tight, his eyes full of ghosts. This, he muttered, is the part that costs blood. Whose blood would stain the dirt first? The riders crashed into the barricade like a storm. Gunfire, screams, and steel clashing filled the air. A wagon shattered under the weight of hooves, scattering defenders. A farmer went down, his chest torn open. His son screamed, trying to drag him back, until Murray's hand pulled the boy away from death's reach. Elodie rushed to the wounded, tearing strips from her dress to bind bleeding arms and legs. Her daughter clung to her skirt, eyes wide with terror. All around, the town was breaking. Then Calder rode into the fray, his eyes locked on Murray. He fired, the bullet grazing Murray's arm. Blood splattered, but the outlaw didn't flinch. He leveled his rifle and shot the horse from under Calder, sending the raider leader sprawling into the dust. The crowd erupted in hope, but it was short-lived. Calder rose, laughing, even as blood dripped from his brow. You think you can stop me, butcher? You'll bury them like you buried your own kin. His words were venom, striking deeper than bullets. Murray froze. His grip faltered. The memory of a small grave, snow falling, haunted him. Would his past break him in the moment they needed him most? Murray stood still, Calder's taunt echoing in his skull. The battlefield blurred. The screams, the smoke, the gunfire all fading into the image of a child's grave he once knelt before. His past clawed at him, dragging him into despair. But then, Elodie's daughter screamed. A raider had grabbed her, yanking her from her mother's arms. Elodie cried out, running helplessly after them. Murray's eyes snapped into focus, rage replacing sorrow. The butcher returned. He raised his revolver, fired once, and the raider fell dead, the girl tumbling free. Elodie scooped her child into her arms, sobbing. Murray turned back to Calder, blood dripping down his arm, fury burning in his veins. "You're right," he growled, his voice low and shaking. "I buried my kin. And I'll bury you too." The crowd gasped as the two men faced each other in the dust, the world narrowing to a single point of reckoning. The air hung heavy, thick with dust and blood. Townsfolk froze as Murray and Calder circled each other, boots grinding into the dirt. It wasn't just a fight between two men. It was the weight of every grave, every raid, every lost child. Calder's grin was jagged. "Tell me, butcher, did your boy cry when he died? Or was he too weak to beg?" The words sliced deeper than any blade. Gasps spread through the crowd. Murray's eyes darkened, his hand twitching near his holster. He could end this in one shot. But something inside him whispered. Killing Calder would not bring back what he'd lost. Justice was a hollow word in the West, and vengeance only built more graves. The standoff cracked when Calder lunged first, pistol flashing. Murray moved faster. Steel screamed, bullets cut the air. One struck Murray's shoulder, spinning him back, but his shot clipped Calder's thigh, sending the man crashing down. Before Murray could finish it, the raiders dragged their wounded leader back, firing cover shots. Smoke and hoofbeats swallowed the horizon. Calder escaped, bleeding, but alive. The townsfolk erupted in shaky cheers, but Murray just stood there, clutching his wound, staring at the blood in the dust. Victory felt hollow, because the devil always comes back. The night fell heavy after the battle. Torches burned low, smoke still rising from shattered barricades. Families wept for the dead, burying fathers and brothers by lantern light. The victory felt fragile, temporary. Everyone knew Calder would return with fury. Elodie found Murray by the well, blood soaking his shirt. He was silent, staring into the black water as though it could wash his past away. She stepped closer, hands trembling, and pressed cloth to his wound. He flinched but didn't stop her. "You saved my daughter," she whispered. "You saved us all." Murray's jaw tightened. "I've taken more lives than I've saved. Don't thank me. Don't trust me." But Elodie shook her head, tears in her eyes. "You carry death, yes. But tonight, you carried life too. That's more than most men can claim." For the first time, Murray's breath faltered. The wall he'd built around his heart cracked. But before words could follow, a boy ran up, panicked. Riders spotted by the ridge again. The peace shattered like glass. The raiders weren't finished. They were regrouping for something worse. The town gathered in the square, trembling. Scouts swore they saw lanterns flicker on the ridge, the raiders preparing for a final strike. Fear gnawed at courage, and whispers grew poisonous. In the shadows, some men plotted again. "If we give Murray to Calder, maybe they'll spare us," one hissed. "He's the one they want, not us." By midnight, the plan was set. They would bind him while he slept, drag him out as tribute. Cowards clung to the lie of survival, blind to the cost. But Murray was no fool. When they crept into the barn, ropes in hand, he was waiting. His revolver gleamed in the moonlight. The men froze as his voice cut the dark. "You'd sell me to the wolves? After I bled for your children?" One stammered. We're just trying to live." Murray's eyes burned. Then live with the shame. He didn't shoot them. He just walked past, stepping into the night, leaving silence heavier than gunfire behind him. Elodie found him at the edge of town, saddling his horse. "You're leaving?" she asked, her voice breaking. His reply was a whisper. If they fear me more than the devil at their gates, I can't save them. Would the town lose its only shield before dawn? Elodie ran after him, desperation cracking her voice. If you go, we all die. You know that. My daughter, she'll die. Her words trembled in the cold night. Murray froze, his hand on the reins. He wanted to keep riding, to vanish into the horizon where no ghosts followed. But her words pierced deeper than bullets. He turned slowly, and for the first time, Elodie saw the man beneath the legend, the grief, the guilt, the unbearable loneliness. You think I'm a savior, he said bitterly. But all I do is bury people. She stepped closer, her tears catching the torchlight. Then bury me too, because if you leave us now, that's what you'll do. For a long, aching silence, the wind howled between them. Finally, Murray dropped the reins. He sat on the steps of the church, head in his hands. Elodie placed her hand gently on his shoulder. For the first time in years, he didn't push someone away. Stay, she whispered. Not for them, for me, for her. And against every instinct, the butcher stayed. But staying meant facing Calder's wrath at dawn. The hours before sunrise crawled with dread. Torches burned out one by one, leaving only the pale glow of the moon. The townsfolk whispered prayers, clutching their children. Every creak of wood, every howl of the wind felt like death approaching. Murray sat in silence, his rifle across his knees. Elodie sat beside him, her daughter curled in her lap. They spoke little, but the quiet was its own language. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for a fleeting moment, he closed his eyes and let himself feel the warmth he thought he'd lost forever. But peace never lasted in the west. Just before dawn, the sound came, low, steady, growing louder. Hoofbeats. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The horizon flickered with torches. Calder had returned, his force doubled, his fury unchained. The townsfolk stirred, panic choking their prayers. Some begged to flee. Others gripped rifles with trembling hands. Murray stood, his shadow long in the dying moonlight. He loaded his rifle with slow, deliberate hands. His voice was steady when he spoke. This isn't about me anymore. This is about whether you choose to live or to kneel. The earth shook as the raiders descended. Dawn painted the valley blood-red as Calder's raiders thundered down, a wave of death crashing against the fragile barricades. The townsfolk fired desperately, wood splintering, screams ripping through the air. Murray stood at the front, his rifle a blur, every shot finding its mark. Beside him, men and women who had once feared him now fought shoulder to shoulder, spurred by his unflinching presence. Still, for every raider that fell, two more surged forward. Calder rode at the center, fury etched into his scarred face. His voice carried above the gunfire. Burn them! Burn it all! Torches arced through the air, igniting homes. Flames leapt skyward, smoke choking the defenders. Elodie shielded her daughter inside the church, her prayers drowned by chaos. She looked through the smoke to see Murray, bleeding from a fresh wound, still standing tall. But the barricade was breaking. The raiders pushed closer, steel against flesh, fire consuming hope. Murray turned back to the townsfolk, his voice thunderous. Fall behind me. If this town dies, it'll die over my body. One man against 100. Could he hold the line? The raiders pressed harder, bullets cutting down defenders one by one. Mothers screamed, dragging children into cellars. A man fell beside Murray, his blood soaking the dirt. Still the butcher stood, his revolver smoking, his eyes burning. Then Calder rode forward, halting the assault. He raised his hand, grinning through the smoke. Enough! The battlefield quieted, leaving only the crackle of fire. His voice rang out. This doesn't have to end in ashes. Give me the girl. His eyes cut toward Elodie's daughter. Gasps tore from the crowd. Murray blood froze. He remembered his own child, buried beneath snow, the helplessness of loss. His hand clenched his pistol until his knuckles whitened. Elodie screamed, "Over my dead body," as she clutched her child. But Calder's men circled, ready to burn the church to the ground. Murray stepped forward, his voice low, steady. "You want a life? Take mine instead." The crowd gasped. Even Calder blinked, surprised. Then his grin widened. The butcher himself? Now that's a prize. Would Murray truly trade his life for theirs? The townsfolk cried out, begging Murray not to go. Elodie clung to his arm, tears streaking her face. "Don't do this. Not for me. Not for us." Murray's eyes softened, just for her. "For you," he whispered. "For her." He pulled free gently, like a father letting go of a child's hand. He walked into the open, gun holstered, arms spread. "I'm yours," he called to Calder. "But you leave them. Every last one." Calder laughed, his voice cruel. "You think I keep bargains, butcher?" He raised his pistol, aiming for Murray's heart. But before the shot rang out, chaos erupted. Townsfolk, fueled by desperation, opened fire again. Women hurled stones, men swung axes, children screamed in defiance. The fragile town rose as one, unwilling to let their shield fall. Calder roared, firing wildly. A bullet struck Murray in the side, blood pouring, yet he didn't fall. With his last strength, he drew his revolver and fired. The bullet struck Calder square in the chest, knocking him from his horse. The battlefield froze. Calder was down. But was he truly dead? Calder writhed in the dirt, blood soaking his shirt. But even wounded, his laughter echoed like a demon's. "You think killing me saves you? Another will rise. Always another." His words dripped venom, but his grip on life was slipping. Murray staggered forward, each step painting the earth with blood. He pressed the barrel of his revolver to Calder's head. The townsfolk held their breath, torn between fear and hope. Calder sneered, "Do it, butcher. It's what you are. End me." Murray's finger hovered on the trigger. Memories of every life he'd taken clawed at him. Then he saw Elodie in the crowd, clutching her daughter, her eyes begging him. Not for vengeance, but for mercy. Murray lowered the gun. "No more graves," he whispered. Instead, he let Calder bleed into the dirt, his own sins swallowing him whole. The raiders, leaderless, fled into the hills, their shadows breaking apart like smoke. The town erupted, not in cheers, but in stunned silence. They were alive, but their savior was falling. Murray collapsed to his knees, blood soaking the dust. Would the butcher live long enough to see the dawn? The battle was over, but the town was broken. Homes smoldered, graves dug fresh. Yet life stirred where death had nearly triumphed. Children drank from the well. Mothers wept with relief. Fathers embraced sons. At the center of it all, Murray lay beneath the rising sun, his breath shallow, his skin pale. Elodie knelt beside him, her hands stained with his blood. "Stay with me. Please stay," she begged, tears streaking her cheeks. His eyes flickered open, weary but soft. He reached for her daughter's hand, holding it weakly. "I couldn't save my boy," he whispered, voice breaking. "But I saved her. That's enough." Elodie shook her head, sobbing. "No, you're more than the butcher. You're the man who gave us life." A faint smile touched his lips, the first in years. "Then let me rest." His eyes closed, his chest rose once more, then fell still. The town mourned him as a hero, burying him on the hill where the wind carried the scent of wild sage. Children placed flowers on his grave. Mothers spoke his name with reverence. And Elodie, with her daughter's hand in hers, whispered to the wind, "The killer we feared most was the savior we needed." And in the quiet after the storm, the town found not just survival, but hope. ending justice, sacrifice, and a memory that would never fade.